We are live. It's spring week. So you know what time that is, or you know what time it is? It's Buffum Updates. I might need to redo that and bring it back in. But other than that, we all good. It's Adam Mustard Tiger, Big Dog Chico. We're live. Buffum Updates. We're back once again on the spring break week, opening week, I would say, of the 2025 football season. We can pretty much say that because we're going to be on the field this week. How you doing, Adam?
I'm doing well, Chico. Yeah, this is like the season for diehards, right? This is
Yeah.
when folks that really love to diagnose those position battles and just love the game of football and enjoying soaking up all those clips you get from spring ball. I've always been a big fan of spring ball. It's low stress as a media member because
Yeah.
there's no chance of losing a football game in those 15 practices. So you got a lot of just smiles on people's faces, and I'm anxious to see how this all comes together. I don't know if I've looked forward to a spring ball more than I do this year. And I was looking back through some of the quarterback battles that I've covered at Colorado, and this is going to be the best that we've had yet.
Yes, we're going to definitely get into that and some other position battles going on. But like you say, it's more relaxed time now. You can hang out with the fam. You don't have to worry about the post game or after a loss or anything of that nature. So how have you been killing time in preparation for this spring?
A lot of it's been recruiting coverage because they've already started to line up guys that are coming out for the spring and summer. And we've got a whole thread on buffstampede.com breaking those guys down. And so that's been a big part of it. It is a time for me to catch up with family a little bit and just kind of, I don't know. There's been times where, like, if I feel like I'm coming out with a cold, I shut it down for 24 hours. That doesn't ever happen during the football season for like 8 months of the year. So those opportunities to do it is this is the time of year you got to do it. But I do better working covering the Colorado Buffaloes than I do just kind of not having that set schedule. I really do miss it.
Yeah, I can understand that. Let's get into some recruiting real quick before we get into the battles on the field. And just generally, you're seeing Coach Prime, from the past years as compared to now, seemingly recruiting more 4 and 5 stars and highly rated guys that a lot of people may know about. Anybody that stood out to you or kind of catches your eye and be like, oh, we're actually recruiting this guy and could actually bring him in?
Well, I think this has a chance to be Colorado's best prep recruiting class when you look at just the fact that, unfortunately, and I don't think my bosses are going to get mad at me. I do believe this on 24/7 Sports, on 3 Rivals, all the different services that rank recruits. So much of that is placed on quantity. And this is a new generation. And I do give the folks at 24/7 Sports credit for like creating this overall ranking with the transfer ranking, with the high school ranking. So you can kind of break it down a little bit more. But it's just a little bit different now in the way things go. And I wish folks could be as exciting about recruiting as they used to be. Part of that is the transfer portal. So, like, you don't want to fall too far in love with some of these guys, not knowing, how long they're going to be around. But we've at least seen, the high school guys that have joined this program under Coach Prime, the Michael Welch's, Omari and Miller's, a lot of the guys that have continued to kind of develop. Those are the fun stories for me to watch, guys that show up on campus as freshmen and kind of go throughout that whole progression. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, you look at the guys that are scheduled to visit Colorado, I would start with Oscar Rios. This quarterback's films. He's coming out on June 20th. He's got a lot of other offers. He looks really good. Jordan Deck is a safety. I mean, there's a bunch of receivers coming out. Rodney Colton as a linebacker coming out June 20th. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got a list of good guys coming out. And there are big-time programs also recruiting all these guys. And it's been pretty incredible for me to reach out to a guy that just got an offer from CU 3 days ago, and they say, oh, yeah, that pushed it to the top of my list.
Yeah.
I didn't have that before Coach Prime. They'd have to really – they'd almost have to be first in line to kind of get that initial impression. through some of those years. So that's been fun to see. There's a lot of momentum there, but no commits yet. So you got to kind of watch this play out through the spring and summer. But I do think that they're going to have a bigger class for high school than they have the past 2 years.
Absolutely. And the class that they brought in this year wasn't no slouch either. So we're seeing a bunch of what seemingly seem to be some battles that's brewing on the front and going into the spring. Any ones that stand out to you before we get into the obvious one with the quarterback battle between Salter and Julian Lewis? So any other position that's standing out to you right now?
Well, the linebackers were so good last year. And I feel like the defensive line production based on these 9 guys that are on scholarship, and maybe a couple don't pan out to be what you thought, but you're still going to have a really solid rotation of 6, 7 guys on that D line. And that should allow the linebackers to, again, do their job, kind of like we saw last year. I thought the D line was among the most improved groups on that team in 2024. And so if that group can continue to be, taking on blockers and letting those linebackers do their thing, I think your eyes go right to Martavius French, Reginald Hughes, Jeremiah Brown, Kylan Salter. Like, how does this linebackers room look? Because that and safety defensively are the 2 places that have a lot of, I guess you would say, question marks, just because these guys are new to the program.
Right.
Offensively, the interior 3 is like a crapshoot. I did some spring ball, pre-spring ball depth chart analysis, and I mean, you could talk about 8 guys potentially starting in those interior offensive line positions. Tight end should be intriguing. Zach Adkins has shown up and done everything that they expected him to. Savell Smalls, I thought, was a little bit underrated given his lack of opportunities last year. Is Sam Hart going to be healthy? That position will be interesting. And then obviously running back. I mean, that's going to be a fun competition to watch. I feel like
Absolutely.
Isaiah Augusta is kind of taken on the alpha dog role in that room. So I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, it's like, if you put a gun in my head, I think that's your lead back in 2025. But we got to get through this offseason.
And we have, with Gustav, like you said, and Hayden still back there. Michael Welch is back there. Brandon Hood is there. They're going to have a new coach with Marshall stepping in, the Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, there to coach the running backs. And his first time coaching, of course, he knew Coach Prime for the longest at the NFL Network and played in the league together. Super Bowl champion, Hall of Famer, and college from San Diego State. What are some things you think Marshall Faulk going to be able to bring to the Buffs this year?
Well, if first practice, he's going to have the attention of those guys. I don't know if those guys in that room watch Marshall Faulk. I would imagine many of them were too young to really know how great he was. But that since Marshall Faulk got hired at CU, they've had a lot of people telling them how great he was, right?
Yeah, buddy.
That Isaiah Augusta and Michael Welch have done the research by now, and they understand how amazing this guy was and a student of the game. So first off, it's going to be ears perked up. And secondly, it's a lot more about the balance of the offense with that group. And I feel like they're going to be the breakout group in 2025. And I mean, I wish I could be coached by Marshall Faulk in anything in life, because he's done everything from like financial literacy to all these charities, and he seems like a stand-up dude.
Yeah.
And so I was asked recently, what am I most looking forward to with spring ball, and it's like just seeing Marshall Faulk coach those running backs is going to be really cool, and getting a chance to interview him. Heck yeah.
Yes. Now, I don't know if I know Marshall might be a great coach, but I don't know if he can help myself or you in that backfield being a better running back. I don't know if he's that great of a coach, Adam. Especially me in the backfield.
We got one play in us, don't we?
I got one play, and that's going to be a penalty. It's going to be called before the snap, and then I got to come off the field. Then that's it. Do not hit me at this age. Somebody was talking about could TO and older players come back and play. And I heard them say they maybe come back and play and run around, but they don't want to take no hits. Once you get like over 40 or something, you don't want to take no hits. Hell, I remember I didn't want to take hits at 27.
You have that old man strength at that point, though.
You have the old man strength, but getting hit and falling to that's a different story.
As long as you can spend the next week on the couch.
Exactly. Now might need 2 weeks on that couch, man. We have another coach coming in, a veteran from the NFL in Demata Peko, and we've been talking a while about trying to get some more Usos and Tongans and Polynesian players on that defensive and offensive line and on the team, period, because of just the history of Polynesian players at Colorado is what my main thing was. And I think Coach Prime has opened himself up and his team up to do that now with this hire of Demata Peko, not just because of his heritage and his culture and his background, but because he's an NFL veteran, has proven himself, and has been on the NFL coaching level this past year, actually, with the Dallas Cowboys. So now him coming to take over that defensive line, join with Coach Sapp there, how could it affect the recruiting and also the current defensive line players that we have there now?
Yeah, I think that for many years, people looked at Utah's program because they had decent quarterback play, not great quarterback play, and decent skill players, but it wasn't always elite, like in terms of all conference, all American type talent. But one thing Utah always has had is that Polynesian pipeline in their backyard in Salt Lake City. And they've recruited that to Utah, and they have been so dominant in the trenches, specifically their defensive line. So yeah, if you can somehow manifest some of that to Boulder, that would be great. But he comes into a great spot. I mentioned earlier that they've got 9 scholarship guys on that defensive line. Most of them are upperclassmen. Most of them have played at the Power 4 level. A lot of them have played at CU. So you've got a good group right there to start with. And if Jaheim Otis stays healthy this season, he's going to be an all-conference guy. He's going to be mentioned as an NFL draft pick. So that's kind of the main headliner in that group. But he does have a pretty solid group to work with. Yeah. You think back just a couple of years ago, that defensive line they had during Coach Prime's first spring in Boulder, I think there were only a few of those guys that were actually back for the summer. Mm-hmm. This is so different now, 2 years forward. Like, you think, I'd be surprised maybe one of those guys leaves, but you've got the bulk of what you're going to be working with in the fall here on campus this spring. So I think that's good for him. He's kind of a relative unknown just from a coaching standpoint. I know he spent last year with the Dallas Cowboys, but I am anxious to see him work with this group. Last year, everybody pointed to Robert Livingston's lack of experience as a defense coordinator, and that worked out so well. So sometimes experience can be a little bit overrated, but you still want to see it manifest itself in terms of those guys meshing this spring.
Yeah, I think it's going to be wonderful. Just like we saw Coach Sapp come in there and bring what he brought to the table on that defensive line after not being a coach, having no coaching experience, I think we see the same thing from Demata Peko. A guy who's actually been in the trenches and done those things can show the players how to do it and demonstrate it. I think they're going to respect that. I'm not saying there's not guys like this around the country, but I think Peko is a special type of guy because where Colorado sits in that Midwest and the reach that they could have from Colorado and the islands, I think he's going to be that connection there. And that's going to take Colorado, I think, over the top, because any good football team, pros or whatever, you're going to have some Polynesian players on it. And that's not being biased or anything. I think that's just being factual. Nowadays, you see so many pro players come from American Samoa as far as per capita, as population goes, that's a bed you need to be, looking to find some players that are out there in American Samoa and Tonga. So I think Peko is going to bring that. Shout out to Demata Peko for coming over and being the head coach or being the defensive line coach. And Coach Sapp has an official title now, other than just quality control analyst. He's the pass rush coordinator, the PRC. and I think he enjoys having that and wears that proudly.
Good for him. Yeah, I think
That,
they found it. It's good self-awareness for him to go, I'm better in this role of what did he say
I,
to Neely?
I
Something
could I
about
could just
I
I
could
could
I
just
could just pour
add
sap on top,
my
pour
sap
sap on top.
seasonings, be the
Yeah,
icing on that cake.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. No, that's good. That's one of the things, Chico, is like you get older, like some people like that are younger and want to do this or that, and you're like, man, like you need to find your niche
Mm-hmm.
and have self-awareness. And Warren Sapp knows how he fits into this Colorado Buffaloes program, and it's been pretty seamlessly because he's not under false pretenses of like, yeah, I want to work 90 hours a week. I'm going to do what I do. And yeah, no, I think that's good. As long as his chemistry with Pecco is similar to what it was with Damian Lewis, because we know those guys really meshed well.
I think it will
And
be. As Sap said, he played the nose, I played the three, and it's like they're playing two different positions on the
yeah,
football field and working together in the same way they're doing that in the coaching staff now. So I think it's going to be great, that chemistry.
yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see. Like last year, they had the edge guys meet with the defensive line, so it was like this massive
Mm-hmm.
grouping that you would meet. Now George Hilo takes over that edge group. How intertwined are those groups? That's another thing that I'm anxious to kind of see this spring.
Yeah. Going back real quick to Marshall Faulk, I think um, one of the things that he said, I think the offensive line coach said this, that the first thing Marshall said was, we got to run the football. And he contacted the offensive line coach, Andre Garrard, I think it was. And he said, we're gonna run the football, which is another new guy we have coming in to man that offensive line. So him and Marshall being on the same page, we should have an improvement in that run game. So they didn't meet together last year. I think they're planning to meet together this year. When I played football, the tight ends met with the receivers and the offensive line, and the running backs did the same thing. They would meet running backs only, and then would meet with the offensive line to make sure they're on the same page. So I think Marshall is for already making the first step to head in the right direction to have an improved running game this year, which I think.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, which I think will help whoever that starting quarterback will be, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah, that's the key, right? I think there's got to be this emphasis as a program this offseason in terms of uh, everybody feeling like they've got to step up their game. And Shador Sanders was phenomenal. And there's a reason they ran the offense they did the previous 2 years, and especially going beyond Shador. You look at the receiver talent they have, and they've got a lot of receiver talent in the program still. But you know, as a program going into 2025, this is an offense that's going to look very different from a balance standpoint. It has to. There's no way around that. And if Caden Salter's your guy, a lot of RPO stuff, and it'd be fun to see Isaiah Augustive and Michael Welch back there with him and really putting defenses on their heels and not really knowing what's coming at them. I think Julian Lewis, if he wins that job, it's because he's shown that he could beat out a guy that won the Conference USA Player of the Year 2 years ago. And so you'd feel good about that as well. He's a little bit more of a dual threat than some of his high school stats suggest.
Mm-hmm.
But it is this thought offensively that it's going to have to be just different now going forward in terms of a balance standpoint. And I don't think there's anybody that thinks they're going to be throwing the ball 64% of the time like they did the last 2 seasons. And so
Right.
there's a lot of pressure on Pat Shermer this year to find a system that is going to fit these guys to really maximize that. It would not shock me if they averaged the same amount of points this year, though. That's one of the things. I've done a couple of national radio interviews, and they're like, oh, Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter have left. Colorado's going to have this massive downfall in 2025. And it's like, well, this is now the third offseason. It's like, I feel like you guys aren't doing your research in terms of the talent that's been brought in this program. And there's a lot of guys hungry on that offense. I guess it's more of a question mark when you have the setup they have going into spring ball this year versus when Shador Sanders is your QB1 the last 2 years. But hope springs eternal, and I really don't feel like that's a fake hope, because you look at the talent and what Caden Salter did in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I did research the other day, and there has been just 6 true quarterback competitions in the last 22 years in Boulder. And I'm looking at those competitions: 2022, JT Shrout, Brennan Lewis. I mean, Ryan Staub would start over those 2 guys probably.
Yeah.
2020, Sam Noyer, Tyler Lytle, Ryan Staub would start over those guys, and he's 3rd in this competition this year. 2012, Jordan Webb, Connor Wood, Nick Hirschman. Ryan Staub would win that quarterback competition. So, like,
you see the uptick of talent.
You are. So it's like, yes, it's a little bit nerve-wracking not to know who your quarterback's going to be going into the offseason, but this is a quarterback competition that should be so much better than what we've seen recently here.
But whoever the quarterback is should be a lot better than what we've had in the past, like you just said. Yeah. So exactly. I'm looking forward to that too. I think Caden Salter going to come in, and it's going to be his, so to speak, his job to lose. I'm sure it's going to be an open competition, but he's the senior. He's the guy with the experience. He should be able to come in and lead this ball club. And if he ends up struggling or something, I think then you can go to Julian Lewis without any pressure too much being on him. I think if Julian comes out there and he wins it in the spring, just have to be over the top, then that way I could see him starting first game. But right now I see Salter coming in there, being steady, doing what he's supposed to do, and leading this ball club. Just being that mature type veteran quarterback, as you saw him in the first meeting, he said, I'm here to lead this team to the Big 12 championship. 32 passing TDs in 2023, 15 in 2024, but he did have 7 rushing touchdowns this past year, 12 the year before. So he's definitely a dual threat guy, and I think that's going to bring a different dynamic to this squad. So a lot more running this year, big play passes I expect to see, and first game I think Salter should be that guy, and I wouldn't be surprised if and there's no knock on Julian Lewis, it's more of a compliment to Salter. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see Julian Lewis start a game this year. If Salter can get in the wins column, he plays well and keep the Buffs in the wins column. And I think that might be ideal for Coach Prime to say, hey, man, we don't have to play Juju this year because Salter has been so good, and set up Juju to come back to be the starter next year after getting some experience also. But that's not to say that he's not ready, because he's probably the most ready quarterback I've seen come out of high school in a long time. So,
yeah, Julian Lewis is not laying over at any point in this competition, which is exactly what you want. And I'd be shocked if they name a starter coming out of spring ball. I think they want to push that into August to, see how this continues to evolve. Because with Julian Lewis, especially, I mean, he should be a junior in high school right now. So I feel like you've got to give him those 15 spring practices and coach him up on everything and see how he comes back with what he learned during those spring practices during camp before you make any type of decisions, right?
Yeah, great point right there. So we shall see. And definitely, like you said, push it all the way to the summertime, unless, one of them just is heads over the other. But I really don't see that happening. I think it'll be a quarterback battle all the way to the end, with Salter being the older, mature guy coming out on that. We'll see, though. We'll be talking about this each and every week right here. Buff 'em Updates. Adam Mustard Tiger, Big Dog Chico, coming to you live and direct right now. We got to get into this news real quick before we can't leave without talking about the Big 12 has moved 10 games to Friday night, including 2 of the Colorado Buffaloes ball games. What do you think about that move? And Friday Night Lights, going down once again.
Selfishly, I love it because that means I actually get to watch some football. Like, if they play on a Saturday afternoon, I'm getting there to beat the traffic. I'm staying there late, and I might get home to watch that late. It used to be the Pac-12 game. Now I guess Big 12 is kind of after dark on ESPN. But I love it because early in the season, you want to be able to watch more football, so you can tune into the Buffs on Friday and then go check in on some other games. Houston is going to be pretty darn hot in mid-September. So I might just fly in and out. Well, fly in the day of and fly out the next day out. I almost melted out down at UCF last year. Everybody was making fun
Oh
of
yeah.
this. So, but no, I enjoy Friday games. There was a little pushback when college football started doing this because high school was saying this is about us, but I don't really think that generally you're keeping people from going to support their kids at a high school game with this new schedule,
Nah.
or is it? I don't know.
Tough to say. I don't think so, especially nowadays when you have phones. Hell, take the phones with you and watch the game. But if you're saying making a decision whether I want to go to the Colorado game or go to my son's game or whatever, then of course you got to go to your son's game.
Yeah.
But you can still find a way to enjoy the Colorado Buffs game because it's going to be live television and it's Friday night. Probably I think the first one is going to be the only game on, and then the second one is going to be one or two games that weekend. So, or that Friday night. So we'll see, man. I think that's a great move. More exposure for Coach Prime. Once again, do you think that the Buffs' full schedule will be on TV this year like it was last year?
Well, first off, I got to say, Friday nights at Folsom Field are nuts. So that Georgia Tech game.
Oh, that's going to be crazy.
Oh man, I just hope every time I've covered a late Friday game at Colorado early in the season, if there's any type of delay, it's happened twice. There are like people being carried out of the student section. So hopefully no delays and we can just have a rowdy crowd. In terms of the TV schedule, yeah, I think Colorado is the biggest draw in the Big 12, right? There are some programs that kind of outdrew Colorado from a rating standpoint this past year. But 2 years ago, Colorado was right up there in the top three, right?
Mm-hmm. So I was going to say this. What did you say in your article that Buffs fans would be saying?
Say it again.
I said, what did you say in your article that Buffs fans will be saying for Friday night?
For Friday night, they're going to be rowdy as hell.
Thank God it's Friday, you said. Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. Yeah. TGIF.
TGIF, yes, Friday nights in Boulder where it's cold. Everybody going to be getting busy and getting ready to look forward to the NFL draft where we will have several Buffaloes available to be drafted. Coach Prime even told before there's going to be Pro Day coming up, which is going to be huge. And Shiloh Sanders is prepping for that, which Coach Prime said, dog, if you run the 4.4, I'll get you whatever car you want. So that's a nice carrot. What do you call it? Carrot on the stick to chase after for Shiloh. And a lot of other players will be there. Of course, all the seniors, Travis and Shador, expected to work out. Talk about what type of draw that could be and how important it is for the other players that Shador and Travis will be waiting till Pro Day to show off their skills for the NFL.
We already knew it was going to be the most attended Colorado Pro Timing Day. And the fact, Shador and Travis decided they're going to wait till this event to participate on the field just throws gasoline on that. It's going to be pretty fun to watch. And I'm curious to see. I know Travis doesn't really have to do a whole lot to boost his stock. We've already known what he did. But like I was telling my wife the other day, like, man, it would be a bucket list item to watch him test out in the vertical. And if that happens, I'm going to elbow everybody. I got to get a front row seat for this.
Yeah.
That would be must-see TV right there. I don't know if he's he's above 40, right? With his vertical. It's got to be.
Heck yeah. I would say about 42-inch vertical jump. And if I'm sliding you on that, Travis, my bad. I'm just saying the minimum. I'll say 42 on that. So I remember I jumped to 32. So that lets you know how much hops I had, which is probably I'm just tapping the backboard, laying it up. I ain't really dunking that thing like probably Adam did. So you might have to throw your weight around, Adam, and box some people out like back in the day, to get that spot for Travis's vertical jump and 40 time. I don't think he'll run. I don't think he should run the 40. But if he was, man, 4.4 at least.
Yeah.
4.4 at least. So,
but the thing that bothered me coming out of the combine was the fact that Jimmy Horn did the gauntlet drill with ease, had the fastest top speed of that event.
Mhm.
Like, shouldn't that be like more important in terms of an NFL evaluation than just a flat out 40-yard dash time? And I don't know what you thought. I didn't think Jimmy had the perfect technique out of the blocks.
Yeah, see,
So
that's the thing, man. It's that technique stuff about running the 40. Like everybody can't, or I wouldn't say can't. I would compare it to taking the test at school, right? Everybody's not the best test takers, even though they might know the information or know what the answer is. They just don't do well in the test taking environments, to where I'm just sitting in the room and taking these ACT tests or whatever. I think the same way for 40-yard dashes and getting ready for the combine or testing at the combine, because I'm literally just becoming a track star now. And that's not really how I run. A lot of people, I run faster when somebody's chasing me. I run faster when the dog is chasing me, I'm sure. I run faster if I'm running next to someone trying to race them. And just getting out there running, some people don't perform as well as others doing that. And I think that's what we saw with Jimmy Horn Jr. running a 4.46. We all think that he's way faster than that as far as the eye test go. So maybe he's still working on that. He can shave some points off of that start and have a better start. And that way he can reach his top speed a lot faster. And maybe we'll see that get down to a 4.36 at Pro Day, which I think will help him out a lot. Yes. And to answer what you said, though, I think the 40-yard dash is now, instead of just being that sole measure of speed, now they're looking at and they're measuring the top speed when they're running routes and doing those drills, as you said. So I think that plays a role in evaluating their speed nowadays also.
And by all accounts, like Jimmy Horn increased his stock while he was out there by
Yes.
doing a lot of those drills. And there's been many times that, there's no cheering in the press box, but like Jimmy Horn will take one of those short passes and just cut up, and the defender takes the wrong angle because they're just not used to somebody having that burst. And you go, woo, like to the person next to you. You can't cheer, but you can let out a little noise.
And
yeah.
Real quick, you said you can't cheer in the press box. I wish somebody would have sent me a text of that last year before I came to the press box, and I'm up in there. People looking at me like, and I'm looking at them, why y'all not cheering? They're looking at me like, why are you jumping? Like, you don't know where you are, do you, Chico? Like, my bad, man. So, yeah, I appreciate that. I know next time.
But that burst that Jimmy has, like, come on, if you can't see that he has elite speed, then you're just not a very good scout.
Yeah. And then also you have to take in consideration some people are faster without those pads on and out there on the track. But when you put the pads on, and that's what's called game speed. When you put the pads on, you see guys like Jerry Rice run a 4.6 or 4.7 in the combine, but then get out there on the field and nobody can cover him or catch him. You're like, dang, where's the 4.3s at now? Well, that's that game speed, and you have to run with about 28 pounds of equipment on, which is a lot different than running in just your Spanx, as they say, your underwear. So we covered quite a bit so far. We got the QB battle in, players and coaches, new coaches arriving on campus. The schedule is pretty much set, I think, for this week. It'll be, is it Monday, Wednesday, or is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday, Thursday. Yeah, went back to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday this week. I think next week will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then it goes back for the next or for the following 2 weeks. We'll be back to Tuesday and Thursday practices. So we'll be alternating here. You see more on Buffalo updates right here, and keeping up with the Colorado Buffalo spring practice and all the news and things of that nature. And if y'all want to keep up with Adam and his great coverage of the Buffaloes, tell them where to find them at, Adam.
BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network. I'm on Twitter at AdamCM777.
Off the top, yes, indeed. Y'all can find Adam there. Find me also. Make sure you hit the like, follow, subscribe, and everything else. Buffum updates. We're back, baby. It's springtime. We ready to go putting them pads on. I ain't hitting nobody, but I'll be out there acting like I'm hitting somebody. You know what I mean? All right. We'll be back with some more, man. Buffum updates. We up and about it. Peace and release. Yeah. Buff them updates.